So Daniel, thank you for joining us at Chief Data and Analytics Officer 2018. Could I start with asking you a little bit of background about yourself and what you do at Yellowfin?
Sure. Well, my name is Daniel Shaw-Dennis. I'm from Yellowfin, and I look after their corporate marketing and alliances globally. I myself have an analytics background. I used to look after BI teams across here and Australasia, and for the last kind of 8 years been working on the vendor side.
Now that we're into February, could you tell us what the key things are within data analytics that we might see come to the forefront from the rest of this year?
Well, I think this year in particular, we're going to see a lot of vendors come out with their take on, augmented analytics, kind of machine learning and AI. And that's going to, I think, make a massive difference in terms of adoption of analytics throughout organisations.
What would you say are and have been the biggest barriers within data analytics so far to date?
I think the biggest challenges lie in skills. So skills to interpret data, skills in terms of training and enabling, particularly the wider business across an enterprise, to actually understand what they have and utilise it as much as they can. And that also then puts another kind of strain on the teams that are kind of responsible for that from a time perspective to kind of get things done.
What are the primary objectives for your data analytics strategy into the coming year?
It's a bit of a given in terms of that we are hopefully in the right direction in terms of strategy, but I guess given the proliferation of so many more sources, and looking at it from the marketing side, there are so many more web sources coming about that my global team wants to use, is ensuring that we're bringing those in and being able to analyse them correctly and across the business.
What do you think are the key thing or things that have revolutionised the data analytics industry to date?
I think with the emergence, probably in the last kind of 10 years of some of this kind of self-service kind of vendors, that's really helped push analytics to the forefront. My family know what I do now as opposed to working in IT, which is quite a nice difference. So things like that have helped kind of bring it, I think, into the limelight. But right now there's such a proliferation of analytics across sectors, across industries, that it's becoming a norm that you have to have some analytics on basically what you're doing, which is great.
How do you think that the data analytics landscape will change over the coming years, and what are your predictions for data analytics into the next, say, year, 2 years, or even 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, so some of those kind of machine learning and AI technologies I spoke about, I think that's going to be the biggest game changer. But I mean, not just trying to use a grandiose word, but it's actually going to make it easy and accessible. So if it's more accessible to the wider audience, it's going to get adopted and it's going to get used more. So I think that's going to be the biggest difference, and it's going to happen fairly soon because a lot of vendors already brought this to market. And I think in the next 1 to 2 years, you're going to see the impact of that on a larger scale.
Why did you choose to enter the data analytics industry?
I think I've always been a data person. I started working at a big bank in Australia in their analytics team, and it kind of just grew from there. Just business and IT kind of seemed to blend well for me, and I've got a bit of an analytical mind, so it kind of worked out pretty well. So,
what's the best thing that you found about working within the data analytics industry?
Look, it's just using it to understand what happened definitively. I think I quite enjoy it because there's a lot of speculation and gut feeling and things like that. But actually, surfacing that and using the power of data to go, look, this is why, this is the how, this is the strategy you can build on that is pretty rewarding, and seeing people using that to its full extent.
If you were granted one wish to change something in the data analytics industry, what would that wish be?
Probably I'd want more people to really understand the power of what it can do. Because I think that, once again, there's a lot of reliance on gut and things like that, but if people can understand the power of analytics, and it'll help get it to kind of further adoption.
What has been your toughest lesson within data analytics to date?
The toughest lesson is probably, I said, because I've had that background, and particularly moving to the event side, thinking that everybody loves using these tools, especially when going out to an organisation. When the reality is that most people don't really want to use it, they just want insights, even though we're building these fancy tools. And that's probably the toughest lesson, to learn that they just want insights, they don't necessarily need the whole shebang.
Why did you decide to speak at Chief Data Analytics Officer UK?
Yeah, so we've been a sponsor of these events across different parts of Asia Pac and the US, and for me as well, it's a really great audience, a good technical audience, and we can get into the nuts and bolts about what are they doing, how are they doing it, and have really good conversations around that. And that's kind of driven us here to not only sponsor, but speak where we've got a contribution to give.
How important to you are events like this, and how important is it, do you think, to bring the data and analytics community together?
Yeah, I mean, that community side of things is something that we're pushing quite a lot now, because I think that there is such a good community, but it's still niche in a lot of regards. But wanting to build that up, and as I kind of mentioned earlier, see the power of what analytics can bring is really important. And as I said, talking to like-minded technical people is a great way to kind of spread the word.
And finally, could you please give us a short testimonial of how you found the event so far?
We've been involved with these events across the world, and we're doing it again, so there's obviously a good reason for that. As I said, there's been some great conversation, but it's also in the past led to great success stories with us, so hence why we're doing it here. And so far there's been a similar kind of trend followed, which is great.
Dan, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for answering our questions, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
No problem. Thanks.